Have you ever wondered how economists can possibly explain an entire economy, all its booms, its busts, all the chaos, with just a single diagram? Well, today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to build that very tool from the ground up. And I promise, by the end, you'll be able to use it to make sense of the economic world all around you. It's the big one, right? The question that keeps people up at night. One minute, things seem totally fine, and the next, it feels like the floor has just vanished from underneath us. We all saw this play out during the Great Recession that kicked off around 2007. So what on earth happened? I mean, just look at this chart. In 2005, sales of new homes were through the roof, and then they just fell off a cliff. Now, this wasn't just a problem for the real estate market. This one collapse sent shockwaves through the entire system. We're talking over 10% unemployment and a shrinking economy. To really get our heads around how one sector can do so much damage, we need a better way to see the big picture. And this is it. This is our tool, the Aggregate Demand/Aggregate Supply model, or AD/AS for short. Think of it as our diagnostic kit for the whole economy. It's what helps us see how growth, unemployment, and inflation are all connected, all at the same time. Okay, so let's build this thing piece by piece. We're going to start with the producers. This is the supply side of the economy. All the businesses out there, big and small, that are actually making and selling stuff. So, aggregate supply. It sounds a little fancy, but all it really is the total output of the entire economy. We're not talking about one company's supply of coffee here. We're talking about the total supply of everything, from cars to computers to haircuts. And the way we measure all that stuff is with real GDP, which is just the value of everything we produce adjusted for inflation. And the logic for why this curve slopes up is actually pretty simple. Imagine you're a business owner. If the prices you can sell your products for go up, but your costs, like your employees' wages, stay the same for a bit, your profits are going to look amazing. So what do? You produce more. And that's true for firms all across the economy. Higher prices tend to lead to more output. Of course, making a bunch of stuff is only half the battle. You can't sell what nobody wants to buy, right? So let's flip over to the other side of the economy, all of us, the spenders. And this is what we call aggregate demand. It's basically the total spending on everything in the economy. It's the sum of what all of us consumers spend, what businesses invest, what the government buys, plus our net exports. In a nutshell, it's total demand. So, why does this curve slope down? Why do we buy less stuff when the overall price level goes up? Well, it really boils down to three main reasons. First, there's the wealth effect. Think about it. If all prices go up, that cash you have saved up doesn't stretch as far. You feel a little poorer, so you buy less. Second is the interest rate effect. Higher prices mean people need to borrow more, which can push interest rates up, making it more expensive to get a loan for a new car or house. And finally, the foreign price effect. If our prices here go up, our goods suddenly look more expensive to people in other countries, so they buy less from us, and our exports drop. Okay, so we've got our two pieces, the supply curve sloping up and the demand curve sloping down. Now for the really cool part. Let's put them together and see how the whole economy finds its balance. Right where these two curves cross, that is the economy's sweet spot. It's the equilibrium. And this one little point is incredibly powerful. It tells us two absolutely critical things about our economy's health all at once: the overall price level, which is tied to inflation, and the total output, or real GDP, which is tied to jobs and economic growth. This little table for the fictional country of Serbia makes the idea totally clear. Look, when the price level is low, down at 110, demand is really high, but firms don't want to supply that much. There's a mismatch. But as you go down the table, you hit this magic number. At a price level of 130, the amount people want to buy, $680 billion, is a perfect match for what firms want to produce. That's it. That's our equilibrium. But here's the really crucial point. That equilibrium point isn't set in stone. It moves. And understanding why it moves is the absolute key to understanding things like recessions and booms. So let's go back to that housing crash. Consumer confidence just tanked. People got really worried about their jobs, about the future, so they started spending less and saving more. So how do we show that in our model? Well, that big drop in confidence causes the entire aggregate demand curve to shift over to the left. This means that at any price level, people are just buying less stuff overall. And the result of that shift is a new, much more painful equilibrium. The economy produces less, which means lower GDP. And because businesses aren't selling as much, they have to lay people off. That means higher unemployment. And that, right there, is what a recession looks like in our model. It's a period where the economy is operating way below its potential, where we're not using all our resources, and a lot of people are out of work. But a drop in demand isn't the only thing that can break an economy. Our model also shows what happens when the problem comes from the supply side. Imagine a massive, sudden spike in oil prices. All of a sudden, it's way more expensive for almost every business to operate. This shifts the aggregate supply curve to the left, and the result is this uniquely awful problem: a stagnant economy with rising unemployment and rising prices at the same time. It's a toxic mix we call stagflation. You know, what makes the AS/AD model so brilliant is how it manages to combine two major and historically competing economic theories into one single unified picture. Let's break down how it does that. See, for a long time, economists argued about what really drives an economy. You had one camp, following John Maynard Keynes, who argued that demand creates its own supply. And then you had the classical view, known as Say's law, who argued the exact opposite: supply creates its own demand. So who was right? Well, the AD/AS model's clever answer is that they can both be right. It just depends on where the economy is operating. And to see this, we can think of the aggregate supply curve as having three different zones, each one telling a different story about the state of the economy. Way over on the flat part, that's the Keynesian zone. The economy is in a deep slump, with tons of unemployed workers and idle factories. Down here, boosting demand leads to more output without really causing much inflation. Then, way up on the steep part, that's the neoclassical zone. Here, the economy is running at full capacity. Trying to boost demand here just gives you higher prices, inflation. And in the middle, that's the intermediate zone, where you get a little bit of both. So here's the bottom line. The AD/AS model isn't just some abstract graph. It is an incredibly powerful diagnostic tool. By figuring out which zone the economy is in, policymakers can get a much better idea of the challenges they're facing and the trade-offs involved in trying to manage unemployment, inflation, and growth. So, we've built the model and we've seen how it works. You now have the tool to analyze the world around you. And that brings us to the big question I want to leave you with. Looking at the economy today, with its current mix of inflation and unemployment, which zone do you think we're in right now?